This revolution is not going away.
This is the Ron Paul Liberty Report with Ron Paul, Daniel McAdams, and Chris Rossini.
We are all ambassadors of the Ron Paul doctrine, and it's so simple. Just tell the truth.
An idea whose time has come cannot be stopped by any army or any government.
Thank you for tuning into the Liberty Report. With us today, we have Daniel McAdams, our co-host. Daniel, welcome to the program.
Happy Monday, Dr. Paul. How are you today?
Good. I hope it's a happy Monday everywhere.
I hope so, too.
We'll find something that somebody's not happy with.
Yeah,
and
I think we probably will.
Of course, we were on pins and needles and biting our fingernails about this peace treaty that was going to burst out.
Yeah.
And peace would be in the Middle East for the next 100 years.
Yeah.
Well, they finally got an answer from Iran. Nobody's surprised about anything. The requests made, the failure to accomplish anything, and the people just, trying to deceive the people. But the one thing they were able to do is get some good advice. Israel was willing to give advice on what we might do the next go around.
Yeah.
But I don't think much new came out of it. But the markets gathered. Sometimes there's more significant things that we consider significant. It won't do a whole lot to the markets. But today, I have to admit, I was a little bit surprised because this was a nothing, result. But once again, oil was on the march, but just general activities can do that of continued war and debt. And then also, there's the oil price went up and gold and silver was up. So the markets were saying it wasn't a calming down of the problems of there. They're still there. And so we'll probably have a few things to say about that. And right now, the response from the Iranians is totally unacceptable.
Yeah.
Yes, a lot of people made accurate predictions. They said it would be unacceptable. So they play these games, and it's amazing how they keep going through with it. It's not like we haven't heard this story before. We've heard it a few times, and it's continuous because there's certain political forces and desires that prevails over the American people. American people don't count. The American Congress, the Congress doesn't count. So, but they do have a consultant. They can make sure that Israel is pleased with everything, and so maybe Israel was a monkey wrench this time and got this up. But I think it's bigger than that. I think this has been around for a long time. So I imagine it will continue, but people are nervous, and I think the markets are very nervous, and they have a long way to go before they get settled.
Yeah, the timeline is interesting because President Trump on Wednesday sent over a proposal to Iran, and he said, you've got 48 hours to respond to this. So that would mean by Friday, Iran needs to chop shop and get this thing ready and accept it. Well, Iran, that deadline passed, and Iran was completely unfazed. They didn't respond at all. In fact, they did not respond until yesterday, I believe, and they sent their response to the U.S. proposal, and that's where you can actually put this up. This is from Dave DeCamp, wrote it up at antiwar.com. Trump said Iran's response to the U.S. proposal is, as you said, Dr. Paul, totally unacceptable. He said, I just read the response from Iran's so-called representatives. I don't like it. Totally unacceptable. Thank you for your attention to this matter, the president wrote on Truth Social. He made similar comments to Axios/Mossad reporter Barak Ravid, saying, I don't like their letter. It's inappropriate. I don't like their response. They've been tapping along many nations for 47 years, whatever that means. But, the problem here, Dr. Paul, is exactly the way the U.S. quote-unquote diplomacy approached the Russia-Ukraine situation. Remember when General Kellogg every couple of weeks would go to Russia and he would deliver the same proposal over and over. He wrote it. He was obviously very proud of it. He kept proposing it, and the Russians said, no, this is not acceptable to us. Let us tell you what we want, to get some sort of a real peace in Russia and Ukraine. And they just ignored it. The same thing is happening now with Iran. The U.S. continues to present the same maximalist proposal favored by Netanyahu, as you say, and the Iranians keep saying, no, we're not interested in this. Here's what we are willing to talk about. Here's what we're not willing to talk about. Let's see what we can do, and the U.S. just won't accept it.
You know, when we look at a few other things and try to sense what do the American people think, and this occurred during the the Iraq War until the propaganda machines get rolling.
Yeah.
The American people basically, I think they start off closer to our position. This doesn't say much to our success because we lose the support, and the people who have the control of the media and the money and the government, they can convert the sentiment of the people, and that's what they've been able to do. So it's something that we have to contend with because they're not going to go to the people. But, you know, if you look at polling, the American people, polling might be a lot better measure of some of these things than voting. And I think there's some polling people that have credibility because their whole life depends on not putting out just propaganda. Yeah. And so the polling they don't it doesn't turn into a policy statement just because most Americans and most Republicans are sick and tired of this foreign policy. But then the hardcore and the people who are in the right position to make sure that the people get the message on what they can do and accept and who the enemy is, and no matter what they do, it's Satan himself that has done this, and that's how. So it's difficult. I think for myself and others that you say if you say something to try to reach the truth of the matter is you're a supporter of Israel. I mean, you're a supporter of Iran, so therefore you're a bad person. You're a pro-Nazi, and all this stuff that goes on. And then the people that go along with it. Because I think that control of the people is outside of the political parties. Political parties remain like this. They're fighting and struggling, and they don't get converted. But the general sentiment is pretty vulnerable to this, and that's where it's worked. And then sometimes they just totally ignore it, or they'll create another crisis, which they've done that for years, decades. Create the crisis where you couldn't possibly say, oh no, they bombed us, but we shouldn't do this, and they trap you into it. So anyway, we get behind on this. And this is, I think, just another example of games they play. And I'm just disappointed that our message doesn't get out a little bit more thoroughly, so that people don't just capitulate and go along with this, because there's somebody else. Look at how many years did we try to prevent this monstrosity in Ukraine? Yeah. I mean, we had been talking about that all the way back to 2014, I think, trying to tell people, watch out. NATO's reneging on all their promises, but. We weren't able to achieve that because I think the majority of the opinion makers, really won that fight.
Yeah, and they got a lot of money doing it.
Yeah.
Well, it's no shock that Trump rejected the Iranian counter proposal, and here's why. If you put on that next clip, the first thing Trump did when he go to that next. Thank you. The first thing Trump did when he got the proposal is he called up Netanyahu. The president said he spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu on Sunday about Iran's response. According to Israeli media, and I highlighted this, Israeli officials are trying to convince their U.S. counterparts to launch major airstrikes aimed at destroying Iran's energy infrastructure. So Trump gets a counterproposal rather than talking to Congress, rather than talking to the American people and explaining why we have to continue with this nonsense. He calls up Netanyahu, who, of course, wants us to fight Iran. That's the whole point of it. He wants the U.S. to fight his wars, which is what we're doing. But in the meantime, you can see that Iran is actually getting a little bit cheeky and a little bit confident, because if you look here, an Iranian source told Iran's Tasnim news agency that Trump's rejection of Tehran's response was, quote, of no importance because no one writes proposals to please Trump. The source added that the quote, negotiating team should draft proposals only for the rights of the Iranian people. And when Trump is dissatisfied with them, naturally that is better. So there you have it. This is why it's failed, because President Trump is not, obviously doesn't seem to be serving the American people. He seems to be serving Benjamin Netanyahu.
That's right. And the conditions remain very strained and very dangerous, because who knows what event it might be today, tomorrow, or next month that will expand the war. But I think, Daniel, that our concerns that we've expressed for the last couple of months have come into fruition.
Yeah.
I mean, this war is bigger than before, a lot bigger before, and more people are involved. And yet there's more people in this country. I mean, just think of how it split the Democratic Party, how the bombing on the Palestinians, the killing of the Palestinians, that got people's attention, but it doesn't really change policy. That's what's bewildering. But all I can say is our efforts should be to the best of our ability to sort out what is true and right and what is proper and who's lying through their teeth, and hopefully make a difference. Well,
here's what Iran is saying now. If you put on the next one, now this is an article from Zero Hedge, so you don't see the headline, but this is the quote-unquote unreasonable demands. It's clear there remains a huge gap between the positions of D.C. and Tehran. Over the past days, we saw proposal and counter-proposals submitted via Pakistan, U.S. calling it unacceptable. According to new Monday words from Iran's foreign ministry spokesman, quote, everything we proposed in the text was reasonable and generous. However, U.S. officials continue to insist on their unreasonable demands. And I would say those are the demands of Netanyahu. But anyway, so he described that Iran's demands for the war to stop is for the U.S. to lift its blockade, the release of Iran's frozen assets, and the release of frozen assets. Further, Tehran is demanding safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz, along with establishing security in the region and in Lebanon. I think to most people that sounds fairly reasonable. Why do we have a blockade there? That's an act of war. We have no business doing it. Frozen assets, that's their money. They should probably have it back. And safe passage is not only benefiting Iran, Dr. Paul, it benefits the world. We're on the brink of a major economic depression. So why is the U.S. sitting there preventing food and oil and all the other products from leaving?
And that has been, the true crisis has been delayed a bit because all countries have a buffer. They keep a little extra here, and they've been living off that buffer. And they say the tanks are empty. They're empty, and it's going to be noticed. There's predictions now that our shortages are going to be really bad. Here it is. We live in a country with all the wealth we could conceive of, and if we go around the world, 6,000, 7,000 miles away, and deliberately start a war, make up a story on why we have to be so fearful, and they do that. And what does it do? It creates chaos. The American people, the one thing the polling does reveal is they are sick and tired of the prices going up.
Yeah.
But my complaint is they don't understand exactly. The people don't understand exactly why prices go up. They don't connect it to the monetary system, and that's why I like to always emphasize when they're complaining about the cost of living. You don't say alone. You should say, "Oh, the prices are going up. Prices are going up. They're gouging us too much labor costs," and things like that. What they ought to say is, why does the value of the dollar go down?
Yeah.
And we might get somewhere. And then maybe we wouldn't be on the verge. The wars couldn't be fought if they had to borrow this money. The American people would never loan this kind of money for these kind of wars. Right now they don't have any, so they just print it.
Yeah, they just print it out of thin air. Well, here's a little bit more from the Iranian foreign ministry spokesman, and now, maybe I'm biased. This seems reasonable to me. Go to the next one. He seems like he makes a decent point. Iran has proven to be a responsible power in the region. Look at the same time, and at the same time, we are not the bullies. Rather, we are anti-bullies. Just look at our conduct. And here's the part that I highlighted. Were we the ones who launched a military campaign against America thousands of miles away? Were we the ones who killed 170 innocent people on a single day? Are we the ones bullying Cuba, Venezuela, and other countries in the Western Hemisphere? Were we the ones who, during a diplomatic process, committed such a great crime twice? Is attacking a country, destroying its infrastructure, and assassinating its leaders and citizens of the country an example of responsible behavior? That's a pretty good point. And while he's making these good points, here's what Donald Trump is doing. Go to the next one. He's posting absurd, ridiculous photos of himself on a military vessel watching things be blown up. I mean, the difference between the two approaches is astonishing. We basically, Dr. Paul, to be honest, we have an 8-year-old in the White House right now who thinks he's running things. This doesn't rise to the level of what a president should act like.
There's a place for a slogan on there. Mission being accomplished.
Yeah.
He really believes it, though.
He does.
Why would he do it if he thought it was a negative political?
It's sort of a Walter Mitty thing. He imagines himself as Jesus. He imagines himself as a great warrior. He's living in a fantasy world. You know, he's like a Mad Hatter.
So what are we going to do about it?
We're going to keep talking, I guess.
Keep talking, and with the reassurance that hopefully we're the ones that are leading and moving toward something called truth versus those who don't believe in truth, and they're just looking for power and money and winning wars and killing people.
Yeah.
And making an excuse for it. Some of these excuses for bombing and killing people in the Middle East, it's atrocious. How blunt it is, and even the killing of children.
Yeah.
They said, well, you know, you've got to be safe. We have to be safe. And we have to. And they really want, to annihilate a whole segment of people.
Yeah.
And we're participants in that. They say, American people say, well, that's not us. That's somebody over there. And the president made a bad decision, maybe. But no, there's too many really bad decisions made, and that we should have a say on. So that's why I tried to keep it simple when I was presenting this case for a less inclusive, invasive foreign policy, is just stay out of there. You know, like if we hadn't done anything. Even in the last year with this, it's because this is supposed to be a short war, and I was stretching out. We could do that and continue. It's just unimaginable how many lives would be saved and how much wealth would be saved, and all of this going in the wrong direction, which breeds hatred that lasts for a long time. You can stir up a justification that we have to annihilate this group or that group because they might do this, maybe if I do this, and they said this, and yet at the same time, we have to travel. I wonder how much fuel they use to travel those American warships, building battleships. People are starting to finally make some fun of that.
Yeah.
Because don't you know we quit making battleships in World War II? They haven't been building them. But no, we're building battleships again.
Well, your point is really important. This was supposed to be a short war. Everyone assured us that. Trump believed it, because stupidly he believed Netanyahu telling him it would be a short war. But they still have in their minds the idea that we have time on our side. We can wait the Iranians out. They are begging for a deal. The facts are different, Dr. Paul. If you look at this next one, this is a report from Reuters. U.S. container imports fell 5.5% in April on trade and geopolitical risks, says the Descartes Institute. Experts believe that the blockage of sea routes and the risk of conflict in key ports have eroded confidence in the international logistics system, causing the volume of goods entering the U.S. to fall to an unprecedented level in recent years. So trade is halted. Now go to the next one. It's even more important. The U.S.-Israel war with Iran is now hitting global food population. This is the Washington Post. Iran's disruption of the Strait of Hormuz, a key route for fertilizer, fuel, and shipping, has caused diesel and fertilizer prices to surge across Asia. Farmers in major food exporting countries like Thailand are cutting planting reducing fertilizer use, or abandoning crops entirely because the costs are higher than potential profits. Thailand's rice sector is being especially hard hit. Some farmers are leaving fields empty while others are planting only part of their normal acreage. Urea shortage as the fertilizer and record fuel prices are making farming financially unsustainable. So we're talking about Asia here, but the same is true in the U.S. So we have this false idea that we have all the time in the world. Everyone will wait until Iran screams uncle, begging for a deal. Well, the fact is a little bit different. Put the next one on, Dr. Paul, because this came out a few days ago in the Washington Post, and I think we maybe even talked about it. A confidential CIA analysis concludes that Iran can survive the U.S. naval blockade for at least 3 to 4 months before facing severe economic hardship. So they have time on their side. We don't. It's a massive miscalculation on our part, on the U.S.'s part.
You know, when I think about the current politics in Washington, a lot of energy is being spent and wasted and to bring about destruction. They ought to listen to Thomas Massey. He's prepared. He knows what is necessary. But not only, you know, in a physical sense that he can have a farm and protect himself, but he has a philosophy that would have prevented all this.
Absolutely.
But well, how do they treat him?
Yeah.
You know, they could turn it and twist it around and turn good into, you know, and twist it to the point and say what he's doing is all evil. Yeah. It's just so sad. And that's why in many ways I feel more comfortable realize, or at least I tell myself, this is a philosophic battle. This is a thing done because people believe it philosophically, and that's been going on a long time. So we have to attack it on the principles of you know a person's personal rights, and also you know where do they get this authority, and by what right do we do these things and start these wars? But evidently, that's not going to happen soon. And right today, even though in a way it was quieter than some days, the markets were a little noisier than usual. And who knows what it'll be like by evening time.
Yeah, and speaking of Massey, there was some encouragement, you know, because he started this money bomb, and it turned out to be unprecedented for a House race. I think the last time I checked, he wanted to raise $100,000. I think he's now $1.2 or $1.3 million that he's raised for that final push. So hopefully the numbers are going in his direction, because as you say, it's about the principles, not the politics. So that's some encouragement. However, here's some not encouragement. If you go to the next one, this is still staying on Dave DeCamp. Thank you, Dave, for your hard work. Netanyahu, I would say the real boss, he says the war with Iran is not over. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, and I think he said this on 60 Minutes, said that the U.S.-Israeli war against Iran is, quote, not over, pointing to the fact that Iran still has a stockpile of enriched uranium and maintains its ballistic missile program. I'm actually not going to play that video. I don't think we need it. I was thinking I might want to, but if you go to the next one. So here's the point, Dr. Paul. He says, hey, the war's not over. Basically telling the U.S., you better keep it up. You better keep the bombing. The Israeli leader said, quote, there is still nuclear material, enriched uranium that has to be taken out of Iran. There are still enrichment sites that have to be dismantled. There are still proxies that Iran supports. There are ballistic missiles that they still want to produce. So basically, he is maintaining the maximalist demand of Iran. And unfortunately, instead of telling Israel to go pound sand, this is not our war, President Trump continues to take his marching orders from a foreign country. Now, we would say we don't care what country it is. If it was Sri Lanka telling us what to do, we should tell them to go fly a kite. We should do the same thing here.
It's amazing how they can use the same excuse over and over again. So when was it last summer where they went and bombed the nuclear the nuclear storage and on the enriched uranium, which was not enriched enough to make a bomb. So we went in and destroyed it as rubble. Now they're fighting They dropped out. Now they're fighting, and they still use the same thing. We have to stop them from getting a nuclear weapon.
Yeah.
They have enriched uranium. They do have enriched uranium. It's at 60%, and you can't make a bomb out of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they've had all kinds of offers where let somebody else store it for us or something like that. They're not open to anything else but Netanyahu seems to carry the day.
And ironically, the U.S. behavior just will ensure that countries want to get a bomb. Because if you're like Kim Jong-un and you don't want to be bothered, you get a bomb. So Iran probably should have a bomb because that means they'll finally be left alone. So if you're for non-proliferation of nuclear weapons, the U.S. behavior is having the opposite result than that which is desired.
You know, ironically, the opposite is a truth. We have to get rid of their ability to have a nuclear weapon is the very reason they want the nuclear weapon, and they need the nuclear weapon just for a defensive position. I wonder when the last time has been where the Iranians actually had troops invade another country. Yeah. They haven't been in Mexico.
A few centuries, yeah.
Have they been in Mexico with an army, or have they been up in Canada?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the case. So anyway, I'm going to close out the show for this Monday morning. If you put up that very last clip, I know, Dr. Paul, you like to have a little bit of coffee, especially on Monday mornings. I need a lot of coffee. Well, our good friends over at Munda's Artisan Coffee have created a special blend just for us and just for our viewers. It's called the Revolution Blend, and it's a gourmet coffee. It's a blend of Central American and Indonesian coffee beans. If you're holding your phone right now, well, there's a handy QR code. Click on that and treat yourself to some gourmet coffee. Stop drinking the garbage. Don't go to Starbucks. Get this coffee. It's much better. And they're friends of the show. So anyway, that's all I have to say, Dr. Paul. Over to you.
Okay, I'm going to close with a quickie on domestic politics. Not that that's so worthwhile, but a little bit of entertainment at times. Here it says, new results from Politico poll are stark. 72% of Americans say there's too much money in politics, and that's true. But they don't tell you why it is. With just 5% disagree. But I would say you got to look, why is there too much money? Because we have too much stuff that the government has that they're auctioning off, and you have to get in there and get in a bidding program to get the money back and the new money that they're printing. So yes, there's too much money, but it's not just another reason why you need bureaucrats, and the whole system is corrupt, and then you end up with corrupt money. And they've been doing it for a long time, and it's survived longer than a lot of people predicted. But we're in the midst of an accelerating bankruptcy, and people will someday wake up and know exactly how that came about. And it is interpreted by most people, well, prices are too high. We have to regulate prices. We want wage and price controls, that sort of thing. So that is something that is evolving, will get worse, but we have to get the people to understand the basic principles of monetary system, and the evil that occurs where most of what government does leads to problems and doesn't give us more liberty. And that's been steady erosion of loss of liberty over especially the last 100 years. So we have our job before us to try to spread this message. We're very thankful for our viewers tuning in and our supporters to help us out, because I am convinced that the large majority of the American people agree with a position of more liberty and less wars, and just get the government out of our lives for the most part. We would have a much more peaceful war, much more peace and less war, if we could just accept the notion that liberty has a solution to most of our problems. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report. Please come back soon.
Thanks for watching the Ron Paul Liberty Report. Like and subscribe to help spread the message. And until next time,